And good morning. Welcome to the early show. On this process and that $145 billion verdict against the big tobacco companies could take years. But the case has put the tobacco industry in the spotlight. With some roundtable thoughts on the verdict and its impact, let me introduce in Los Angeles Patrick Reynolds, grandson of the tobacco giant R.J. Reynolds. In San Francisco, Raymond Sasso, president of Forces, a smokers' rights group. And in Boston, Richard Daynard, a professor at Northeastern University School of Law. And good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Professor, let me start with you. Are the plaintiffs ever going to see any of this money?
Oh, I think so. We don't know for sure, but there are really two issues. One is the court system in Florida going to uphold the basic structure of this class action. I think the answer is yes. We've already seen from the Florida Supreme Court go ahead twice. Second, how much money? Most people think something will be shaved off, but I think there'll still be many tens of billions of dollars.
Professor, the tobacco people claim they can't afford this verdict, yes, and the damage is ordered, yes or no. Should we believe that?
You should believe that like you believe anything else from the tobacco companies. Their stock prices haven't done very much. Their other PR is that they're going to do just fine. They've been very reassuring to the stock market. They can raise the price of cigarettes somewhat or just go into the market and borrow the money.
Mr. Sasso, you're sandwiched in the middle here. How do you see this verdict affecting the rights of smokers like yourself?
Well, it's costing us more to smoke, so by what Mr. Daynard said is going to raise the price of cigarettes, so who's going to pay for the settlement but us smokers? I'd like to ask Mr. Daynard how much money he's making from this lawsuit and how much money is actually going to go to smokers, like the flight attendants lawsuit, that not one penny went to the flight attendants in that lawsuit that was came about a year and a half ago. Smokers have had to bear the burden of all of this anti-smoker problem, and we've just about had enough. So
who should be bearing the burden if smokers shouldn't?
Well, I think smokers have paid plenty, and not one of the master settlement of money is going into L.A. parks and freeways, and so we're talking about smokers not paying their way, but we're paying more than our way. We're paying for everyone else's way too.
So why are you mad at everybody else? Why not be mad at the tobacco companies?
I'm mad at the people forcing the tobacco companies into a corner because I buy a product from the tobacco companies and I have to pay for what they're doing to them.
Mr. Reynolds, let me go to you. Although you're from a famous tobacco family, you're now an anti-smoking activist. How come?
Well, my father, R.J. Reynolds Jr., died from smoking when I was 15, and my oldest brother, R.J. Reynolds III, he died from smoking as well, both of them from emphysema. You know, a lot of people feel that smokers should be accountable and pay for the damages, be accountable for the damages that they bring on themselves by smoking, but does that mean that we should let the tobacco companies go unaccountable for their part in the problem? And one of the, I think, most significant things here is that it took the judicial branch of government, the court system, to bring big tobacco to heel. For 30 years, Congress did nothing. Why? Because they're so corrupted by the special interest contributions from the tobacco industry. And studies show that the legislators vote the way the tobacco companies want them to vote, the more money they receive. So it took the court system to bring these companies to heel, and I think that's a very significant point. Until we get campaign finance reform passed, the judicial branch of government may be the best way of bringing multinationals like big tobacco to heel.
Is it clear to you that tobacco companies could have made a safer product and chose not to?
I believe that there is some truth in that. They chose not to, and that was one of the reasons that they've given this huge award. They targeted young people in their ads. One R.J. Reynolds executive wrote in 1975, "It's never. We have to go after the 14 to 24-year-old age range, for they represent tomorrow's cigarette business."
Well, let me just say
ahead,
that I started smoking when I was 13, and I'm a pretty good person. I made the choice to smoke. I was known when I was younger that cigarette smoking was risky, so I made that choice. I want to know...
Okay, wait a second, Mr. Sasso. It was known, but at 13 you can't tell us you're as mature as you are now.
Well, there's no way to stop. How about drugs? I mean, you can't stop kids from taking drugs, and it's an illegal product.
You know, wait a minute. The tobacco industry's used this word choice here, and for many people, smoking is a nearly unbeatable addiction. It's as addicting as heroin.
No.
And 90% of the 46 million smokers in the country, 90% of smokers got addicted before reaching the age of 19. Only children start to smoke.
It's as addictive as caffeine. Nicotine is as addictive as caffeine.
No, it's much more addictive.
Oh, what do you come on?
What the jury found... What the jury focused on was choice. The jury did focus on choice. They focused on the choice of the tobacco executives. Beginning in 1953, when the evidence began to come out in the scientific literature that smoking caused lung cancer, they got together in the Hotel Plaza, New York, They made a choice to try to do what they could to bury the scientific evidence,
And
to
so have
overwhelm
you.
it with,
Mr. Daynard, so have
with
you.
a smokescreen of disinformation, and they've stuck to that choice since then, and the jury said, okay, now you're going to have to pay for the choice.
You know,
Have you
Professor
released all
Daynard,
the
Professor
information?
Daynard, I followed your work for years, and I just want to applaud you, and I want to point out to everybody that Dick Daynard there was the man who carried the torch. He held the candle burning in the darkness when there was darkness all around in tobacco litigation.
He stands to
held
make
that flame
tens of millions of
for all
dollars
those
in
years.
fees. Let me tell you that is not...
Mr. Sasso, Mr. Sasso, are you unbothered by the idea that the tobacco companies misled to you, made fraudulent claims, lied to you, and that their products and policies killed so many?
No, they have not misled anyone. Cigarettes were known in the late 1800s as coffin nails, and everyone knows, my grandfather knew that smoking was a bad behavior as far as your health is concerned, so it's nothing new that in 1963...
Sir, children are not concerned about bad behavior. I have to tell you that. And children are the only ones who become addicted to tobacco.
Who owns my body? Do you own my body, or do I own my body and make the choices that I feel I should make in my life? And you're telling me that since you don't feel I have the rational or
you're
intelligent
telling me
choice,
that children are making an informed choice, and it's a product we know is as addicting as heroin.
Children will do what children do. Children pick up guns and kill each other. Children will get what they want to get.
Look, we know about addiction. And look, whatever your addiction is, whether your addiction is cigarettes or food or drugs or sex or work and computers, whatever your addiction of choice is, we know one thing. The first step in overcoming any addiction is to admit you have an addiction.
Yes, and
as long as the tobacco company is telling you that you have a choice, you're lying to yourself.
I'm so glad that you were elected to tell me how to live my life. I'm so glad that you were elected to tell me.
I'm just saying you shouldn't promote the idea that smokers have a choice
you should not promote
because it
your
keeps them buying the
moralistic
products.
views on
That's
other
why.
people. You have taken it on yourself, and you're bound to make hundreds of millions of dollars off these lawsuits. And don't deceive the public. You are suing the settlement.
All right, gentlemen, let me jump in here and let Professor Daynard have the last word. And Professor, I need it in 15 seconds or less. Given the fact that they've now been put on moral, legal, financial notice, how should we expect tobacco companies to respond strategically?
Well, they're clearly going to try as hard as they can to. They want to go to Congress. They want to get tort reform. They want to get relief. They want to get immunity from the legal system because it's the only system that's holding them accountable. So I think we're going to see them back in Congress trying to pretend to look reasonable, but trying to get out from paying the piper.
I've got to let that be the last word. Professor Richard Daynard in Boston, Raymond Sasso in San Francisco, Patrick Reynolds in L.A. Gentlemen, thank you all. Best wishes to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.